throat morning to night. And they held court on Saturdays, and they held court on the 4th of July on the holiday. I mean, it was really nutty. And, I just thought the jury just didn't care, and they wanted out of there, and they didn't do their job. And I made that determination right away. And it took me about a year, and having gone through all these other interviews and going back over transcripts and documents that people haven't seen, and realizing and interviewing the Anthony's attorney, their original attorney, who had an insight into the Anthony household that no one's heard from before. I kind of realized that, at the end of the day, there was a true doubt as to whether or not George Anthony could have helped Casey, or it actually somehow had been involved with the accidental death of Kaylee. And there was a doubt that the death of Kaylee was an accident versus a murder or premeditated murder. And those doubts were not just, in my mind, having, analyzed it. Those are reasonable doubts based on the fact that George Anthony perjured himself on the stand about a mistress that he said he didn't have, who did testify, who I believed. And also, just the reality that we don't know where Kaylee was, we don't know how she died. There is no evidence as to how this child died, because she was found as bones. And so, because we don't know how she died, as one of the jurors said, initially in the first interviews, and then they ran away because people want to stone the jurors. But one of the jurors said, how can I convict someone who, if I don't even know how their child died? How can I convict them of first-degree murder? And there's a lot of sense to that if you break it down into the minutia.
Are you following the Trayvon Martin case?
Oh, yes, indeed, I'm following Trayvon Martin. In fact, I am going to the vigil in New York City on Tuesday, the 26th, and I will be there doing some man-on-the-street interviews and participating in the vigil just as a spectator and as somebody who's been very much, how do I say it, enraged. I don't know if that's the right word, but I guess perhaps that is the right word. It just seems to me that this is a case that's going to have a serious impact on our racial standards in America, if you will, or the bias that goes on in America, and the profiling, whatever you want to call it.
For a hanging.
Sorry?
They came down here. Reverend Al Sharpton brought down everybody down here looking for a hanging on Zimmerman.
Yeah, well, they did, and I know Al Sharpton. I've been on his show because I wrote a book about Michael Jackson that stood up for Michael Jackson, because the trial against him in Santa Maria that I covered, the child molestation trial, was a complete fabrication of that family of grifters. And I wrote a book about it called Michael Jackson Conspiracy, which is now published around the world. And I mean, people have come to realize that I am telling the truth when I say, as a member of the media covering Michael Jackson trial for Fox News, I had the wool pulled over my eyes and was following a bunch of lemmings who only wanted to report negative things about Michael Jackson. When the jury came back with a not guilty verdict, I suddenly realized they were right. He was not guilty. He didn't do anything to this kid.
Do you think George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin with self-defense?
I don't want to find this man guilty in the court of public opinion. I don't want to come out publicly and give you my personal feelings, because what I do is I am a crime reporter. I'm an investigative journalist. And not only do I host a TV show, but I also comment on the news about these things often, and have done so for 20 years. And write books about it. I would love to tell you my heartfelt answer, but I also have to stop myself, because I have to say, look, I have not seen all the evidence yet. We have not heard and seen everything yet. And media does have a way of putting spin on things. And I know that from the Michael Jackson trial. I went in there believing he was as guilty as sin because of what the media had told me for years beforehand. And then I, still thought he was guilty, even though I saw evidence to the opposite. I just ignored it. So, I know how we all tend to make our minds up based on what the media is telling us. Now, I think on the very face of it, I don't see how a 17-year-old kid winds up dead, that he doesn't have a gun on him and he's going to buy some what was it, sweet tarts or something, or I forget what kind of candy it was. What?
With some soda and some other stuff.
Skittles or something. I don't remember now what it was, but I mean, to me, just on the very face of it, not looking at the law, not looking at having seen evidence pictures of a skirmish or hearing these tape recordings that we've heard bits and pieces of, and not having seen the entire picture all together, just on the face of it, common sense tells me that a kid walking in a neighborhood to go get a soda and some candy, whatever it was, who's unarmed and winds up dead, there's something wrong with that picture. And I also feel that what I do know of Zimmerman's past is that he seemed to want to be a cop. He liked the role of this policing the neighborhood, helping and being the neighborhood watchdog, if you will. And when you have somebody who is overly vigilant or zealous to be some kind of, I don't know what, neighborhood hero or whatever he thought he was being, I'm not sure. That furthers my thought that, why? I mean, we did get to hear, because Florida has sunshine laws, which means that you're allowed to hear evidence before it's presented in court, but we only get bits and pieces. But the whole business of when he called the 911 operator, and the operator said to him, "Man, sir, step away. We're sending someone there. Basically step away." Why didn't he step away?
Okay. Two things. One, I got Sting corrected, and the chat room told me that Trayvon Martin was wearing a hoodie and he bought Skittles and iced tea.
I thought it was Skittles.